All right. Hello and welcome to Critical Conversations. I am your host, Karissa Dean, and today I have Belinda on the show. Belinda is the founder of Your Child Is Not Broken, The Perfect Child, and she is a believer that your child is not broken. So that's not exactly her very specific business title. I'm going to toss it over to her to allow that intro to be perfect. But I'm really, really, really excited for this topic, this conversation. Belinda and I met. Both of our daughters are in the equestrian world. And I knew the moment that I met her daughter that she was parented differently. And so I'm really excited to dive into this conversation, which is really about Belinda and Belinda's path and how she's supported her child and now how she's working on a movement to help others. So Belinda, help me out with this intro. What do you want people to know?
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, thank you for having me on because this is a very critical conversation, I feel. And I feel grateful that you are inviting me on to talk about my mission, to talk about Perfect Child, which is a website. The website is perfectchild.org. And we're a resource for empowered parents.
I love that.
Thank you.
What got you started? Tell me how this whole thing began.
Wow. I guess it began because um, after I had my child, which I had a very conventional birth at a hospital, and then I discovered when I was with parents, they had said you need to look into Waldorf education because there's something about you that you don't, you're wanting to change the public school system. Check out Waldorf. And so I did. And Waldorf philosophy is based on Rudolf Steiner's philosophy. And when stepping into that world of Rudolf Steiner and what he envisioned for children, I realized that the people that are drawn to Waldorf education all are wisdom keepers and they know different things. And the teachers within a Waldorf community know about child development from a very spiritual perspective. And I really appreciated that. And when I saw that, for me, I felt like the first touch point was I want more parents to have access to what real developmental milestones are, what real child development is. And it has nothing to do with grades and what you accomplish as far as reading, math, whatever it is that's in the conventional school system. And then from that, when I step into that world of sort of deprogramming from what I've learned, now I'm discovering, oh, so many things aren't the way that they should be, in my perspective. I feel when I look at the big picture of what's going on and how there's so many hurting people out there, there's a lot of anger and confusion. Hurt people because they're not seen or heard. And so for me, it's like, oh, I see the way that we raise children in this society, they're really not valued at all from the minute they're born. And this is why Perfect Child exists.
Yeah. Oh my God, I don't even know where to start. I'm just so excited. Let's talk about when you say real child development and, we're looking at the benchmarks that are put out by, the state that we live in, the government. What are the marks that are not being acknowledged that you are like keenly aware of that you are hoping to kind of turn some attention towards?
So I feel like the very first thing that we need to consider is that the child that comes earthside is a soul light that is embodying a physical body. And so at the very first point of contact when they come into this world, we can receive them and know that this body as nature made it is perfect. And so they don't need any
Mm.
manipulations in order to thrive. That's point one. Point two is the medical establishment only seeks to monetize your child's biology. And so at every point, they are seeding fear and looking at your child as a specimen that needs to be manipulated, and that they have the things that you need. So first thing is, there are no developmental milestones in my perspective. Your
Mm.
child can be given the space to develop in their own time. That is what I would say. And when people say, "Oh, my child's in first grade and they don't know how to read yet," or just look at how in kindergarten or preschool people are like, "Oh, my child has to start to read because that's what the establishment is telling us." Now they're behind, but they're not. Plenty of famous authors, writers, they didn't start reading until like 9 or 10 or 11. And then once they discovered it, they were like voracious readers and they couldn't stop, right? So if you think about it, and your child's not ready to take in these reading yet, right? And you force feed them and you're like, "Come on, you're 7, you're 8. Oh my gosh, you're falling behind." Then they start feeling behind, feeling like they're failing. And so we have a bunch of kids that are growing up feeling like they're failing, and they have labels placed on them, and they're made to feel small. Literally every complex that we're in, the medical industrial complex, the educational industrial complex, they make the parent feel small, insecure, and they make the child feel small and insecure. How can we change that? By embodying
Yeah.
ourselves. And in your podcast, even, like Mia Gray, when we talk about we're just meeting ourselves in our 30s and 40s, we have to do all this deprogramming. The reason why Perfect Child exists is so that our children don't have to waste time deprogramming from feeling small.
Oh my God. Yes. Well, and I think, I'm like today years old, just
Right.
like figuring it out, and I think to your point, it's like if we are telling our adult versions, hey, you're exactly where you need to be, then why is that same thing not acceptable for the young reader, for the young child? If we are saying you're exactly where you need to be and everything works out for a reason, then it's like, why are we already pushing these children? And I love that you brought this to the forefront, that they're already feeling like a failure. And so if at this very young impressionable age they're feeling behind because they're the only one who can't read, or their benchmark score was low, or whatever it is that we're rating them against, no fucking wonder that we have all these broken adults and these hurt people hurting people.
Right. And it goes really deep, because when you talk about there's no benchmarks, I don't really mean that there's no benchmarks. Like, we really want to meet our children and really, we want to meet them where they're at and also know that there is more for them, right? So if you actually have a child and you have this intuition, something's a little bit off about my child. What can I do to help meet them where they're at? Instead of, there's nothing wrong with my child except that he can't sit still in the classroom. And now the teacher's telling me that he's got ADHD. Oh, but that's because the food that they offer at the school in the first thing in the morning, if you get like the free program that they give you, is sugar. And then a child or any person is really not meant to sit in a classroom away from nature for like an hour, even, especially a young child. To be able to be a parent and say, that doesn't work for my child, I need to find something different. And plenty of parents have found different life vocations in support of their children. And we just have to be
Yeah.
brave.
Well, so let's talk about this, because I think that this bravery piece is the thing, because we're asking broken parents to advocate so that they don't have a broken child. And I'm using the word broken loosely. I'm just talking about as far as the movement of perfect child, the acceptance of you are made to be the perfect version of you, right? Mm-hmm. But you're asking these parents who have all their own imperfections that they are seeing as not beautiful, but detriments or whatever. And then we're asking them to go combat these giant systems. It's kind of like, you know, we're set up for failure, right? And I think that that's kind of what your movement is about, is like, how do we change it from being set up for failure to set up these kids for success so that it gets better, right?
Right. And here's the thing. It's basically like, if you hadn't been in this space to work on yourself prior to having a baby, once you have this child, oh my God, your child is a gift. Your child is 100% a reflection and a mirror. And so oftentimes when we're following the trajectory of our child, right? And we move from a place of fear, because anything that you see, a lot of times the way that we are managing our children is like, if you don't do this, you're going to fail. If you don't do this, you're going to fail. Where's that coming from? That is a need that was a need that was not met for you when you were a child. And so this is an opportunity to introspect and work on letting go of these fears. This is where your like first point of like deprogramming comes from. And the beauty of Perfect Child is that I believe that a lot of wisdom always comes through storytelling. So I interview a bunch of wisdom keepers that have walked that path. And then they will open up doors for you. Like Leah McDermott that I interview from Bridge Academy, she and her husband were educators. She has 2 masters in education. And they knew that when they had their child, they didn't want him going into the system. And so they basically sold everything that they had, packed it up, went on the road with this child. And like the money that Leah got from doing talks at the city that they're heading towards was what gave them the money to head to that city. Right. And now she's got a whole business set up as a private academy, Bridge Academy, that supports homeschoolers. Right. And it's accredited in, I think, like all 50 states or maybe like 48 states as a private school, but like all natural learning. You're not like force feeding your kid anything.
Yeah.
So that's basically
you're just meeting them where they're at.
Yeah. And stepping away from fear, noticing like, this is an opportunity for us to connect with ourselves, with our bodies, to really get to understand how do we step into our own light, so that we can amplify our children's light and not live life from a place of fear, but a place of joy.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you know, Brene Brown, she shared in a talk at some point. I love Brene Brown because she's all about vulnerability. And I think that one of the main things is missing in our society is our ability to be vulnerable, to say, I have these fears or I have these insecurities, but I want to overcome them. And we do that by going into it, right? So she always talks about candle blower outers, or candle lighters, or candle protectors, you know, the people in your world who protect your light. And so when you said, you know, and you just said something about, you know, you want to illuminate your child's light.
Yeah.
You want to amplify it, right? You want to you want to give more ability for them to be more of who they are. But we're not setting ourselves up for that because we're just following this pre-prescribed order of operations in the medical industry, in this is how things have always been done, in the school, you know, our government. It's like what you're saying is to turn your mindset away from being this unconscious liver, you know, I'm just doing things, I'm robotic, to a conscious chooser of how you want to live. and drawing your
Absolutely.
awareness to, well, maybe this could look differently. So tell me more about, like, when you're talking to people, they're coming to you, what are they experiencing?
I'm hoping when they come onto the website that, first of all, their own intuition draws them to a video, an interview that inspires them, uh, depending on where they're at, because our wisdom keepers, they're in like birthing space, in the homeschooling, unschooling space, in the child development space, and also in the self-work space. How do we connect with ourselves to find
Yeah.
more love? I have a shaman on there that, I have a testimonial on there where a mother worked with her, and she describes it as, working with Holly is like she basically got rid of the darkness and brought in more light. And this is what the shaman can do for
Yeah.
you. Like if you are confused and you don't know and you feel like you've got a lot of darkness, like seek the people that can help you. And it's not the medical establishment.
Right.
100% I'm going to say that the medical establishment maybe is good for acute conditions, but the only formula they know is pharmaceuticals, generally speaking. You
Right.
might have like a few doctors, MDs that have actually done research and really understand like the whole body is connected as well as connected to the entire universe. But very rarely do they
Yeah.
know that because they're not taught that, right? So
Right.
you have to understand that every time you take a pharmaceutical, there's side effects. And those
Yeah.
side effects can be very damaging. And if you take them for years and years and years, then you're given more to address those side effects. Like it's not good.
Right. Well, and I think, if you're looking at that holistic, the going through the shamanic journeys and doing some of those more what people might consider spiritually woo woo, what you're actually doing though is you're doing exactly what Brene Brown is talking about and all these other light workers, is going into the feeling
Yes.
versus, oh, you're feeling depressed, here's something to help you with your depression, here's a pharmaceutical, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
if we're looking at a child coming out and it's perfect, whether it has, a missing finger or a missing limb or something wrong with its eye or something
Mm-hmm.
wrong with its heart, that, I mean, I think about all the kids I know, all the people I know, all their stories led them on a path that was actually perfect, right? Like I think about the Albert Einsteins of the world who were misunderstood. He was perfect because we have so many beautiful things because of him. So what are your thoughts as far as, when you are introducing this work to people, they're probably like a little put off by it, but how do you, what's your gap here? How are you filling that?
I I try to interview people that have walked the path, right? So one of the interviews that I would definitely direct people to is my recent one that I launched with Becky Damgard of the Autism Treatment Center of America, which is based on the Sunrise program. And this is a family, a husband and wife, that basically when they had their son was diagnosed with severe autism. The doctor neurologist basically told them, listen, you can expect your son to be in a home by the time he's 18. And the son's not able to make eye contact. He had a lot of stimming and everything, and the parents walked away, and they were very holistic, and they were like, no, that's not going to be our story. And what happened was they reversed their son's autism, and it took a really long time, but what they did was they went into his world. And basically the mother every day would go into the bathroom with him, which is like a contained space, and would do exactly the motions that he would do without any objective, without any expectation, just being with him and doing what he's doing. And that eventually, I think, as Becky describes, was like after like the 900th hour that she did it, he like made eye contact with her. And through that
Mm.
and so much more, he literally reversed his autism diagnosis and went on to go to college. He went to like Yale or something like that. And now he like runs the program as well and does his own talks. But there's so many stories of that come out of the Sunrise program, that Becky describes this program as not just for parents of children with autism, because what we do when we meet this child that is presenting differently than what we would consider normal, which normal is just like should be abnormal.
Yeah.
When we meet them,
what's normal,
right? When we meet them where they're at, it helps us to meet people in that way as well, without any expectations, right? And without judgment, and just meet everyone with respect and love. And even if like I meet you and you're a complete jerk, not just being like that person's jerk, but more like I know that person is in your heart, you are love. Maybe you didn't feel it, maybe you don't feel it at this moment, but I'm not going to judge you for that. And imagine if we met every person that way. Where's your light?
Yeah.
I just see your light. The world would be a different place.
Oh my God. I would love that world so hard. I would be out of a job, but that's fine. That'd be fine. Well, I think what you're talking about pure presence. And I think that we live in a society that is constantly distracting us. This is why I'm a big believer in do not give your child a screen. Do not give your child your phone at the dinner table. Like be with each other, and we're not with each other if this thing is anywhere near us, And so I think presence is a huge thing that you're talking about. And I really believe in the power of presence, because what happens is if you remove all the distractions, if you remove the noise of the media, of the government, of the systems that are set before us, if you remove all of that and you just are with the other person, like this mom goes into the bathroom with her son and mimics his interactions, like all she was doing was being present. That's it.
Right.
And she healed something that wasn't, there. And the other thing that she did was letting go of expectation. And this is the hard part, because this is the control factor that almost, I would say 100% of my clients have, is they want to control the outcome, right? They're like, yeah, but it needs to look this way and fit inside this mold, or else I get anxiety, or I get, this is where if we can be present, because we have no expectation.
Right. And that's so funny.
And that's what this mom practiced.
Right. And the story that you tell about your clients that like want the control and wanted to have a certain outcome, this is why you have anxiety. Because you want it to be a certain way.
Yeah. Because instead of getting to know yourself and being present with yourself and what makes sense in your unique little world, you're looking for these external markers. Oh, if I have a Range Rover, I must be successful. Oh, if I have this title on my business card. Oh, if I have the newest, latest, and greatest phone, or whatever it is. Right. If I have those are the benchmarks, right? And so we're talking about culturally changing, not just a perfect child paradigm. We're talking about a paradigm where people know themselves.
And you will always have a job, Karissa, because this is like eons. Everything is working against us. So it takes a lot.
But it takes a lot. It takes a lot of time. I mean, I met with a client just this morning, and it's like, she's like, I'm ready to talk about my mother wound. And I'm like, cool, we're 2 years in, let's go. Like it's really, it's like, I knew where we needed to go, but like people have to also be willing to make the change, right? And it has to be sustainable. There's no quick fix to this. That mom couldn't go into the bathroom twice and repeat these motions. She had to just let go of the expectation that anything would come from it, right? She just did it. She was just there with it and allowed it to develop. And I think that's the key. Why are we not allowing things to just develop? What are we pushing for?
Right. Because what do we know, right? Because if you think about the way we parent and the control that we have over our kids, what do we know? I would say like 90% of the world. Would you say, Karissa, that 90% of the world is living a life that is less than stellar and they're just kind of waiting for retirement? So if you're pushing your 100%. Kids to do the same thing that you did, because there was that promise of like, I don't know, success. If you go through these steps, it didn't happen. It didn't happen for your friends. Like, we really have to really think about what it is we're doing, and why can't we allow the child to come into this world and recognize that they're here to transform us. They are our teachers.
Yeah.
Can we take a step back and give up control?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can. I love it.
I love it. It's so joyful.
It was not easy to get there. Yeah, it was not easy to get there by any means. Like, it was not, like, I think it's work, and healing isn't always linear. It's not fun. It's really messy. But like, I think you brought up the most beautiful point. So we're pushing our kids to get good grades in school, go to college, get a job, and like bank on winning the lottery or a beautiful retirement. What the fuck did you just do with your whole life, man?
Nothing. We have a bunch of kids that go through school for 18 years and then go to college without any idea what really lights them up. They don't know, because for this entire life, ever since they were born, they've sought out external markers. They've not sought it out. They've been forced to conform to external markers. I don't know.
Yeah. There just has to be a better way. And I think that you're finding it. And I want to bring up, you posted on social media, you go to the farmer's market, you pass out these stickers, which, by the way, please bring, or have Dylan bring one to the barn, because I need a sticker for my water bottle.
Thank you.
But you were passing out and you handed a sticker to someone, and that person was, she made a remark back to you about how there's no such thing as a perfect child. And my fucking heart broke when I heard that. And it breaks all the time, because I see there's so many perfect children who are just being pushed through a system because their parents can't slow down enough to get curious about, why are we doing it like this?
Yeah, so many people. The comment that the mom made was, "Oh, right, the myth of a perfect child." And I was like, "No, that's not a myth. Your child is perfect." And that's just step one. If you look and if you recognize that that's not a myth, and you actually believe, because you love your child unconditionally and wholeheartedly, then you would be able to step into that. Like, that is a perfect child. And what can I do to support this child? As opposed to making this child conform to a world that's very disjointed, very disconnected, very divided, and very unloving.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think we're turning towards, what are the ways in which I could support this child so that they were more regulated, right? Because I'm guessing that child is unregulated because parents are unregulated, because they're addicted to screens, because they're not giving their child the ample attention it needs, that the child is learning how to self-soothe by itself at a young age, and needs something, right? They need love. They need attention. They need affection. They feel abandoned. They feel afraid. They need a sense of security, right? And and that's missing from them. So they're unregulated because you're unregulated. Right. And now you're going to blame your kid?
Right.
Get your shit together. Like, I love you. And it's okay. It's okay if you're that mom. I get why you're unregulated, but like look at your kid and recognize that you chose to bring that being into this world and they deserve you to heal yourself.
Well, and also looking at it from a different perspective, right? Your child chose you. Our children choose
That
us
too.
because they know, I think they know we have it in us to make the change, to do the work. They know it. We just don't know it yet. And are we going
Yeah.
to allow ourselves to have faith and really love and step away from like all the external noise, the fear? Let's not walk through life in fear. That's been programmed into us, and it consistently programs into us from everything, all angles, right? Everyone's fearful about everything. I'm not quite sure why. But if you can step away from fear and really have faith, your child could grow up being more connected to themselves and to you.
Yeah. Well, and I think we all want that. We're just afraid, we're a
Afraid.
fear-driven society. And fear is our society because that's what sells. And
That's what
we're a
keeps you
business,
small.
right?
It's also what keeps you small and keeps you malleable,
Absolutely.
controllable.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the fear, and also, it's tough to take this route. It's rewarding because you definitely find sovereignty and you understand freedom and joy, but it's tough because not only are your peers going to be questioning your decisions, but your children's peers will too. And so you have to
Yeah.
fortify that strength within them, within yourself, because we only teach by modeling. We don't teach through words. That's something that
Right.
we really have to understand from day one. You have to model that you matter to your child. And the only way that you can model that you matter is when my child comes to me and says she doesn't like what's going on, she doesn't want to go to school anymore, me to say, I value your opinion and we can talk about this and let's try something different if that's necessary, but let's talk about it. Let's have a conversation. Because when your
Yeah.
child is not struggling in school and you're making them do X, Y, and Z, that's telling them you don't matter.
Wow. Mic drop, Belinda. You're totally right. And I've never heard somebody phrase it that way. But when you're pushing someone to do something that they're struggling at, and you're saying, just keep going, you're totally right. You're saying that you're not valuable enough to do anything different. Wow.
Your needs don't matter. Your needs don't matter enough for me to actually pause and take into consideration what you're telling me.
Wow. Oh my gosh. And again, what is that pause? That pause is, okay, let's get curious about this present moment and let's be in this present moment and have a conversation. I mean, I think that that's the basis of it all, is if we can find the pathway that gives us the security within ourselves to cultivate that pause and get really curious about the present moment. Wow. Like just that, like I feel energetically, I feel that spaciousness just that opened up in my own body. And so I can only imagine that the more we could practice this as a larger society, what space could exist for all of us.
Right. And the pause is really important because you can have this conversation with your child to understand what they're feeling, right? And then pause even more, because if you have fear around that and you don't know what to do about that, that's work that we have to do
Yeah.
before we
Right.
go back to the child and make a decision.
Right. Absolutely. And I think, a lot of clients, I propose the question, what are you making it mean about you? Like if you decide to homeschool, what's the narrative that you're hearing about who you are as a parent, right? It is
Right.
about how we perceive ourselves, and there's wounds in there that need love. And I also think, I just want to say there's multiple pathways to this. Shamanic journeying and drumming and all of that might not be your path, but there's energy medicine, there's, meditation, there's coaching, there's self-guide. If you're a driven person, you can find your own pathway. There's counseling. There's so many ways in which we can change. And I think we just have to be brave enough to start small, right? Start with that first initial pause and get more curious about that pause. I mean, I think I'm always telling my clients, stay curious. What's possible for you? Like, can you just pique more curiosity into this emotion, into this situation, into this dynamic, into this, work thing or whatever it is? Can you just get more curious, because there's multiple pathways?
Absolutely. And curiosity is a very big one. Curiosity is number one, right? To have the curiosity. And I also feel like the reason why Perfect Child has a bunch of interviews on it with a bunch of wisdom keepers is just as you said. One thing might not resonate with one person, and they'll find other things. But also, if you set that intention of what you would like, write it down, the universe will deliver to you. So it might not even come from Perfect Child. You'll watch some videos, it'll pique your interest, it'll inspire you. And maybe you're walking in a grocery store and somebody has a shirt on that says, like KarissaDean.com, meet your soul self, right? You're like, oh, I'm going to look at that website, and then that'll resonate with you. So just as long as you set that intention and you leave it open with curiosity, the universe delivers, and it will rain on you. And it's slow steps.
Yeah. It's slow steps. And I think also, we're in a hurry. Like, I want to go back to this mom at the farmer's market, and I'm like, what are you so busy doing? Like, why can't we slow down? Do you know why we can't slow down?
Our phones? No, we can't slow down because it's been programmed into us. If you're not being productive, you're not being, which is ridiculous because we are meant to be and just be slower. But we don't know how to do that because we're literally, look at the school system. You're shuttled from class to class. You're not meant to focus on one thing. You're cutting their focus in order to jump to another thing. So you get a bunch of people and the phone. So everything around us, our entire environment, facilitates this like moving from task to task and just being a little hamster on a wheel.
Yeah.
It takes will. It takes will to change the pattern. Yeah,
it does. It takes will to change. It takes curiosity. It takes you just being like, I don't know why I'm doing this anymore. And I'm just going to like pause and I'm going to get curious about, okay, why am I like doing da 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 da, And I think some of my most productive days, I did absolutely nothing but sit with myself.
Right.
Like my most productive season of life was when I just sat with myself and I was like, who is Karissa? How does Karissa want to be a mother to Ruby? How does Karissa want to be a partner to Nigel? What is it that Karissa wants to present to the world? And if I had not taken the time to do that, I wouldn't be having this conversation with you or doing anything that I'm doing in this life. And so if you slow down enough, you get to know yourself and how you want to be in the world.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So important.
It's so important.
What's the final thought? Yeah. Tell me, what's your final thought as we're coming into about 40 minutes of the podcast here?
My final thought is, instead of parenting, try partnering.
Ooh, instead of parenting, try partnering. Wow. I love this. And as somebody who has witnessed your partnering, you have one of the most kind human beings as a child. So I can tell that you've led with a lot of compassion in your home. Your husband, Greg, is amazing as well. Where can people find you and your movement and continue this dialogue, Belinda?
Perfectchild.org is my website. My Instagram handle is Our Soul Work, and my YouTube channel is Perfect Child Collective. So jump
I
on.
love it.
Thank you so
Jump
much,
on.
Karissa.
You're so welcome. I love that you made time for me. You know, I've literally just met Belinda this summer, and I was like, you have to come on my podcast. We could talk about so many things. I'm sure we'll have you back. I believe in the work that you're doing. I know you're a light worker. Please keep doing the work, because I know how challenging it can be, especially when you're confronting, you know, unregulated
The
beings.
systems.
So thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Thanks for making time for Critical Conversations today. You guys go check out Belinda, and we'll see you all at the next Critical Conversation. Have a great day.
Thank you.